Learn the most empowering hiring techniques. Land the most desirable talent. Launch your company towards massive success. This is the Higher Power Radio Show with your host, Rick Girard.
What happens when you shortcut your hiring process because you have a dire need to fill a seat? At first, the interview becomes transactional because you focus on selling your company to the candidate, totally negating the importance of understanding how the person operates, which often leads to a cultural mismatch disaster. Second, we skip talking to references. Now, it's critical that we talk to people that matter, not work friends, but they are the people who directly manage the individual or the peers who are not provided by the candidate. Transactional interviewing and not checking references can manifest itself as a huge liability for the business, often leading to lost business or employment litigation. I'm Rick Girard. Welcome to the Higher Power Radio Show. We help entrepreneurs and executives win the strongest people. We do so by sharing insights from top performing rebel entrepreneurs, game changers, and industry leaders like our guest today, Mr. Jonathan Hard. Now, Jonathan is the CEO of H2L Solutions, a service disabled, veteran owned small business that has rapidly emerged as one of America's fastest growing cybersecurity firms since its inception in 2014. Now, under Jonathan's leadership, H2L has grown to over 60 people, and they proudly serve hundreds of customers throughout the US. Jonathan's dedication and leadership have been recognized with numerous awards, and H2L Solutions has earned a spot in Inc. 5000's list of America's fastest growing companies for 3 consecutive years, and was named Emerging Business of the Year and Best Places to Work, which is what makes Jonathan the perfect expert for today's topic. Jonathan, welcome to the Higher Power Radio Show today.
Hey, Rick, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it, sir. Look forward to our discussion.
What I'm excited about with this episode is that we get to talk about a real story that kind of happened that led you down a path that you didn't foresee coming. It all started with rushing an interview process and not properly vetting. Now, granted, this was a long time ago for you, and you learned a lot from it. I'm going to thank you up front for being vulnerable and sharing this. I mean, that's our mission, is to help other entrepreneurs avoid this shit.
100%. If my story can help one company, one entrepreneur avoid the mistake that we made, then it's worth its weight in gold. 100%.
All right, let's get into it. This is basically, you didn't vet somebody and you ended up in a lawsuit and boom. Tell me about the story. What happened?
So started the company in 2014, like you said earlier. We got our first large contract around mid 2015. And so we had, at that time, 3 people that worked for the company. I was included in that number. And the contract was for four people to do these cybersecurity assessments for a large defense contractor all over the United States. We were to go to these sites and do these, cybersecurity assessments. So I did not have a 4th person. I went to LinkedIn, typed in the requirements that the job specification was looking for, and a few people popped up. And this individual, we'll just say Max was his name, popped up in Detroit, and I contacted this individual and asked if he was interested in the position. He immediately responded, which, good. I mean, I was happy for that. And He said, yes. What's the gig? How much does it pay? When can I start? And so that's how it started. And there were a few red flags. I guess I had noticed on his LinkedIn that he had started his own company, so he had his own entity. But prior to that, he had been with like 4 or 5 different organizations and never had been there longer than a year. So
okay.
He kind of looked like hopping around a lot, and then started his own cybersecurity company.
Okay.
Yeah, and so but here's where I failed. I was in such a rush to fill that 4th position and say yes to the contract that I did not even think that red flag just, it didn't even make a ping on my radar.
You were looking for reasons to like the guy just because it solved the pain, right?
100%.
Yeah.
100%. So,
And by the way, I've seen this so many times. In my recruiting career, I was brought in so many times because of this scenario. We have this person, we need to replace this person badly. Before we do, we need you to find somebody for us. Yeah.
right.
And at the
And,
executive level, it's a little tricky sometimes.
yeah, and it was our first main contract, and I was excited about saying yes, and that. So you were right. I was looking for everything that went to that decision of saying this is my fourth person.
You already went into the process thinking, I'm going to hire this person.
Yeah, the really interview is a nice way of saying that I interviewed him. I There really was not much of an interview process, other than, do you know cyber? He said yes. Can you do the job? He said yes. He sent me his resume, and he had some things that um, you know looked cyber-esque. And so then I flew up to Detroit, and I remember he was at some hotel, and we got in the hot tub, and his chest hair was all out. He had a gold chain around. He's like, I've got this. And I'm like, all right, Max, okay, I
Did
mean,
you
just
hire my cousin Vinny?
okay, Detroit coming to play. All right, let's do it. And so,
All right.
the contract was, it wasn't a long contract, right? It was, I think, 5 months period of performance. Um, yeah, so it wasn't very long, and I think his subcontract portion was, the duration was 5 months, but the amount was only, like, I want to say maybe 70,000, 60 to 70,000 for that, 5 month, 5 to 6 month period. So not huge on the essence of things from a defense industrial based contract perspective, but still for a startup small business, that's a lot of cash. It's a lot of
Okay.
operating.
Okay, you didn't tell me about the hot tub interview. So,
No, I did not.
all right. So, hot tub interview.
Uh,
You made him the offer in the hot tub. Is that
I don't remember exactly. I think I had already made him the offer before the hot tub. That was
okay?
just the icing on the cake, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
And then didn't ask for references. Just kind of went into it
No
completely.
reference checking. He talked a great game. His wife joined us in the hot tub, and she was a social engineering expert. And so, I mean, like, the story that I got from them is that they knew what they were doing. You very, very good. And I can say this now, looking back, very good at conning people, at making people believe in their story and believe in them, to get whatever it is that they want. Right.
Yeah, there are a lot of people out there, what I like to call bad actors,
Yeah.
that they probably could be good in a job somewhere, but their main mission is to get through an interview process with you and get hired because they need that paycheck. No
Right.
matter what they do, they're gonna do whatever they can to
Yeah.
get to that point, right?
A question for you. So we had, like I said, within a year of starting the company. So we created a subcontracting agreement that we used from another company, right? We edited it and everything. And then as soon as he signed it, before we started, a couple red flags hit. One was, he'd message me and say, "Hey, I bought 3 suits. I'm going to expense it to the contract." I'm like you can't charge that to the government customer, man. Like, we weren't even like the prime contractor. We were a third tier sub. So you had the prime, then you had a second tier sub, and then that second tier sub subbed 4 positions out to us, right? So it's
Got
like,
it.
there's no way you can charge that to the government customer at all. No, you have to eat that cost.
Yeah.
That was the first red flag. And then when the assessments started, we got on numerous occasions at the different facilities, and we'd always send people out in pairs, right? So there'd be 2 assessors per site. And anytime Max went with one of our assessors were like, "Man, he does not know how to talk in front of the customer. He is talking about inappropriate things. He's not talking about cybersecurity. He's talking about drinking. He's talking about, clubs. He's talking, he's talking about like everything underneath the book, underneath the sun, except for what he's being paid to do, which is actually assess the cybersecurity posture of this company. And so that was a second glaring red flag. One was
Was he drinking at the lunch meetings too?
I don't think he actually drank at the lunch meetings,
Okay.
but there was a lot of alcohol consumption in the afternoons and at nights.
Yeah.
And almost like he viewed this gig as a kind of like a vacation kind of thing, like a where yes he was working, but he was chilling and living it up the best he could at the hotels, everywhere we were sending him to. And
Hope you don't mind I expense these 8 massages that I had.
yeah, but another the work proficiency of Max also was subpar. So
Yeah.
every team, and we'd alternate it. So 1 week on site, and then a week to write the report, the cybersecurity report on their cybersecurity posture of the entity that we're assessing. He would always be late on the writing piece. And then when we did get that in, we had to do our quality control on it, and it would be really written really horribly. We'd have to go back to him and correct. So we were almost spending just as much time as if we went out there and did the assessment ourselves, and then took that whole week to write the report. We almost had to like double our efforts just on Max's engagements. And I think that this eventually got back to the customer. It wasn't government. It was another defense industrial based customer, but got back to the customer to where after I think it was about 3 months into the engagement, we were probably 70-ish% complete. We still had a few more sites to go to. And I can't correlate, and I don't want to say that it was the reason. I hate to say that it was the reason, but it definitely didn't help the decision made by the customer to do a stop work for the whole entirety of the engagement. And what happened was, so they did that at the prime level, and then of course we got that flowed down to us, and then we had to tell Max, hey, time out. The customer has said stop working, and so we're not working anymore. Now I did for the story, I left out one key crucial, I guess, piece of the story. We did fly him for remedial training. We did fly him to Huntsville, Alabama during that first 3 months of his work, because his work performance was so bad. We thought that if we flew him to Huntsville and we trained him in-house for a week, it would improve. It unfortunately didn't, but that was something that, as a employer, it costs more to rehire and retrain people than it does to try to keep your current, employee base. At least, and you can mention what you know about that, but that's from what I hear. Always hear that regurgitated talk of, well, you want to keep your employees because it costs you more to hire new ones than it does to or did I get that backwards? But you know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there's another way of putting it that I always thought was kind of interesting is that the cost of training, and people say, well, it's expensive to train people. What if you train people and they leave? And then the question is, well, what if you don't train people and they stay? You're in a worse position if they stay and they don't leave. You're always better off training people. So I think, you definitely did the right thing there.
Yeah.
And I think you gave the person a lot of leeway. You should be
Yeah. We did. Yeah, we probably way too much leeway. But long story short,
then you guys wrap up, you get rid of him. What happens then?
right? Yeah. So we wrapped up, and he complained a little bit because he was like, my contract is for another 2 months, and I've only charged gotten 50 out of the 70K or whatever that the negotiated quantity of the award was. And I'm like, listen, in the contract clause, it states that this can be terminated, and that's just how, unfortunately, that's how this job went. And so probably, I want to say 3 or 4 months, totally different world. I'm different. We're continuing to get other work. We're executing other stuff. I get like this 2-inch thick letter in the mail, and I'm like, what is this from? It's from like Detroit, right? Like some law firm. And I open it up, and it's like, oh my, we're being sued by Max for like I think it was like 120 to $130,000 in emotional damages, every damage that you could think of to sue someone over, right? And so I called them. And this is before I always, now if anything like this ever happens, I just send that shit to my attorneys.
Yeah, for sure.
But in this guy, I was like, what the? So I call him. I'm like, dude, what the hell's going on? He's like, hey, calm down. This is just business. Like, you have insurance. Just file it on insurance and they'll take care of it. Don't worry about this. And I'm like, hell no. Like, so, there was
it's just insurance.
Oh my God. And looking back, I wonder how many companies he did that with. And
I'm sure he probably did it to every single one of them that he left before you, probably.
Yeah, and in larger companies, sometimes that might work. They'll come back and say, "Listen, this is frivolous lawsuit. Look, we'll pay you $10K to go away and shut up." If they're bigger companies, right? Because you get attorneys involved. So we spent $25,000 fighting it, right? And so just to do that cost analysis, he was probably honestly expecting us to come back and say, "Listen, this is hogwash, man. We'll give you $15K cash. Just go hit the door." Right. Yep. It's probably what he expected. Looking back, that might have been a good option for me to do because I would have saved money. But long story short,
I love what you did. Keep going with this.
Yeah. So I three things that are very good. I was counseled at the beginning of starting the company to get: one, a great bank, a good CPA, and a damn good attorney, right? A law firm. And so we had already established a relationship with our law firm. And so I hit them up, Andy Watson at Maynard Nexon, and he's like, "Jonathan, this is a frivolous lawsuit. This is trash. What do you want to do?" I'm like, "I would rather go out of business than give this MFer a dime." And he's like, "Say less," And so we fight it. He finds an attorney because you have to fight it in Detroit, right? In Michigan. So he finds an attorney that they've worked with in the past. They take our case. It goes up in front of the judge. Max never shows. His attorney never shows. He says he got into a car wreck, and that's why he didn't show. And so it was thrown out up there in Michigan. So then we countersued, since he did come to the great state of Alabama. We did countersue him, and he didn't show for that. And the judge awarded us a $25,000 damages award because of what it cost us to fight his lawsuit in Detroit. And then immediately he fled Detroit and went to your great state of California and stayed in some kind of like a co-ed living kind of area. Now he's in Utah, so they've got to deal with him over there in Salt Lake or something. So, but yeah, so I mean
that doesn't go down in Salt Lake very well. But yeah,
no, no, not at all. And so
crazy.
But if I had known what I know now back then, he wouldn't have even been a candidate, right? He wouldn't even have popped up on my radar.
It's a very, very common mistake. You're listening to the Higher Power Radio Show. I'm your host, Rick Girard. And for our podcast listeners, we're going to take a quick educational moment from our sponsors.
Finding a great career has always been a challenge. But today, with the massive changes underway in just about every sector of the economy, in just about every country in the world, finding a great new career is even more challenging. And if you're a student, recent graduate, or someone else early in their career, it's even harder for you because you just don't have the experience that those who might be 10, 20, 30 years older than you have. The answer? The podcast, From Dorms to Desks, a podcast by College Recruiter job search site, where every week we take a deep dive into a topic specifically of interest to candidates who are early in their careers and looking for a great part-time, seasonal, internship, or other entry-level job.
All right, in case you're just joining us, I'm digging in deep with our guest, Jonathan Hard. He's the CEO of H2L Solutions. What's great about this is he's sharing a horror story that hopefully none of you have experienced. What's cool about it is you learned a bunch from it. Now we're going to talk about like how you went about solving that problem so you didn't hire another Max.
Right. So that and Max was a 1099 employee, right? He was not an official W-2 paid employee at H2L Solutions. And that experience burnt me on 1099s. I mean, we this was so fast forward 8.5, 9 years down the road, we are just now starting to look at 1099s again, because 1099s do serve a great purpose in the environment from a capabilities perspective, and some individuals make a living off being a great 1099, and they have great capabilities to give us small businesses that we might not could afford organically. But
Yeah.
that was such a horror story that I swore off all 1099 employees for years, because I was afraid that was going to happen again. And you have to look at it from a small business perspective. We didn't have our lawyers draft that subcontract that we sent to Max because it was going to cost money. And since we already had an example from another company that had sent us a subcontract, we thought that one was good. And Max's argument at the beginning was something was wrong with that subcontract, when it turns out it wasn't, but there really could have been. So
Yeah.
And another thing we learned from that is make sure that if you're in a position where you are going to use a 1099 or any type of subcontract, that you do have your lawyers come up and review, at least at a minimum, review that legal documentation between you and that other entity. Right.
So then let's talk about what you started doing with your interview process, because I think that's
I was going to say the biggest thing I did, Rick, was take myself out of it. No, just but
sometimes that's not a bad option, right?
We changed a few things. We did not change a lot, other than shifting from not using 1099s and starting using only W-2 employees from an interview process perspective. That was a huge risk that we just decided not to take ever again for a long time. But
Sure.
the other thing that we started to do is actually maybe look at the person's resume and call a couple of their references, right? And maybe and people say they do that, but it takes time. And time is everyone's most valuable resource. You can't get that shit back once it's gone, right? You can get other things back, but you cannot get time. And so taking the time to actually call and ask another company that this individual worked for, it could save you a lot of time in the future. That would
100%.
be spent maybe trying to get that individual out of your organization because he or she, they or whatever, did turn out to be a bad apple. And you would have found
I almost would argue that actually him being a 1099 was probably better for you, in that like W-2 employee,
well,
there's a
yes.
possibility that you get wrongful termination and a bunch of other things too. So let's talk about vetting. What changed in your vetting moving forward with people? Because you didn't really do much vetting other than a hot tub interview.
Right. No, you can rename this the hot tub interview horror story. But you make a great point. So I didn't know about all of the wrongfully termination, all of the I guess the individual rights that an actual W-2 employee has until about probably 5 or 6 years into the company, and where we got certified HR people on staff and told us all about this HR compliance and everything like that. So at that time, I viewed 1099 as they have more power than a W-2 employee, which is not the case in all. Like you know more of that than I do, but it's not the case.
Well, it's only because I'm in California, and California is it's a hard state to do it. I don't know anything about your state laws, but
they're pretty lax here. But still, I mean, going through all the new compliance stuff that from an HR perspective, it really opened my eyes. Like once you get past 50, there's a ton more regulations that you have to apply to your employees and everything, which is good, right? Those have a purpose. But I did not know about the whole W-2 versus 1099 back then. I thought, we only had 3 people, and those people were super close. I trusted them, right? But as we grow, there's a certain point where you can't know everyone on a personal level. So from a vetting perspective, we started, calling the references, and then we made sure that the requirements met up to the individual's requirements, their past performance met up to what we were actually looking for, right? And and then we on a back then, now we do it all the time, but back then we started on certain critical hires to do background checks, right? Just high level background checks to see if any kind of red flags pinged up and came back on that report.
Got
Yeah.
it. And you're talking about criminal background checks, or just so there's actually you can get into people's now social media and kind of track back a
Another
lot of things.
another great point. So it would just be
Yeah,
criminal background check. Where
got it.
where where now I would think I would pose the determination or the question, how far does a company, and you can answer this, how far can a company's influence go on hiring or letting go based on someone's social media presence?
So you can, though, on background checks, you use a third party and you have them check everything and look for red flags, and then they can report back to you whatever red flags might be.
Okay.
But it's not like, from what I understand, you don't want to go on somebody's Facebook profile and then start building judgment based on that. But if there's things that are critical to the business, maybe somebody posts up in their Facebook profile that, hey, I learned how to make a bomb. Um,
Gotcha. Okay. Makes
stupid
sense.
things like that. The background companies should be able to pull that and be able to provide that insight back to you. One of the things that I really like, what I call backdoor references, where I reach out to people that are at the company that may have worked with the person. And it serves kind of two good purposes. One, if I can get them on the phone and have a conversation with them, I can actually find out really the real story. There's usually
Yeah.
not any sort of loyalty there between that person, and that person hasn't asked to be a reference. And hey, and usually when you ask somebody to be a reference, hey, can you provide a really good reference for me because I'm trying to get a new job somewhere else? And a lot of times people will, just either to be nice or to get them off their back. So it's somebody else's problem. And so I can get a true story on a reference. But one of the things that I learned from a book called Who years ago was the importance of the threat of a reference check and having that candidate provide you the name of their direct supervisor and the phone number and email address. And even deeper into it, what's this person going to say about you? You tend to get to the truth really quickly around those two things. The second point on the background reference is people that were coworkers. Other reason why I like to do this, I can also recruit those people. If they're good, it's a potential candidate pool.
Oh, interesting.
It's
Huh.
got dual purpose. Because usually, if somebody's left a company, I might be armed with some data from that one candidate that, hey, look at the company's, going through troubles or something's happening. Now I can actually reach out as a reference, and now I've got the ability to recruit out of that company.
That makes
Win-win
sense.
for everybody.
Yeah.
Yay!
Interesting. Huh. So would you
All right.
use LinkedIn? Would you use LinkedIn to try to connect with that individual's past employers or employees, like coworkers, or?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. That's usually the best way to do it. All right. Shoot, Jonathan, we're getting pretty close on time. What are 2 or 3 key takeaways you can give the audience?
First one: don't interview people in a hot tub. No, I'm just joking. That was, but so it is so critical, especially for a small business, to make sure you vet your potential and future employees. Vet them. Don't just take their words on it, right? And then make sure that your hiring team understands the position that they are hiring for. And that's something that we have seen reduce the time for finding people qualified out there. So for a cybersecurity company, sometimes it can take weeks to find the right position for a right person for that right position. And so making sure that hiring team understands exactly what our customer is looking for is crucial to going through all those different resumes and making sure that when they are interviewing, they are bringing us the right candidates.
That is so very true. And we didn't even get a chance to dig into that, but that's a really good point. When you know what you're targeting, it's easier to find, right?
Right. 100%.
Jonathan, thanks so much for your time investment today. And I want to welcome you to the Higher Power Radio community. Now, what would be the best way in which members of our audience can find you, find your company, all that good stuff?
Yeah. So, our website is www.h2lsolutions.com, but then you also find me on LinkedIn, Jonathan Hard, and reach out to me. I'm a LinkedIn addict. So
perfect. And that's how I found you. All right. Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of Higher Power Radio. Quick thanks to our team, Brian Colburn, Andrea Ballin, and Ayla Girard. If you're listening to the podcast, please subscribe, review, and share. After all, this show's for you. We want to continue to bring you valuable content that you can plug into your business week after week. You can join the Higher Power Radio community at Higher, H-I-R-E, Power, P-O-W-E-R, radio, R-A-D-I-O.com, or you can drop me an email at rick@intertrue.ai. I'm your host, Rick Girard, and you have been listening to the Higher Power Radio Show. Aloha.
Thank you for listening to Higher Power Radio. Catch our LinkedIn Live show every Tuesday at noon, or download the podcast on iHeartRadio, iTunes, YouTube, or your favorite podcast platform. We appreciate you joining us on Higher Power Radio with your guide to hiring success, Rick Girard.